Hello again, everyone. This is Gilmer, and this is my playthrough of Rise of Prussia Gold. And I'm not going to play a full campaign, I'm just going to play a smaller scenario. Just a little background on this. When I first bought Rise of Prussia, it didn't have a gold version, and it was, I think, the second title I had bought from Ajad, and the first title being American Civil War, the first version. And the American Civil War game I would load up and look at for 20 minutes, and then finally I just quit. I would never even play it because I didn't know what I was doing, had no clue what I was doing. But when I bought this, Rise of Prussia, the subject matter interested me so much that I forced myself to learn the game. I forced myself to play the game, and so go, going back to this game is like going back to my roots of when I first started playing Asia games. And this is one of my favorite games. It's set during the 7 Years' War. The main person of this game is this guy right here, Frederick II, or Frederick the Great of Prussia, and he formed Prussia into a major force in Europe, setting the stage for eventual Germanic unification, with Prussia basically being the driving force for that when it happened in the 1870s. And so this subject matter really interested me. I didn't know much about it. Here in the USA, we had what we call the French and Indian War, which is basically the New World's part of the 7 Years' War. Great Britain was an ally of Prussia, so in the main campaign, when you're playing Prussia, you will see Great Britain send an army to help Prussia, and the belligerents on the other side were Russia, Austria, and France. And over here in the New World, it was the Canadian part of France, because France owned it at the time, against the Great Britain portion, which were the 13 colonies. And of course, Prussia won the war, and England won the French and Indian War. And I believe that was when Great Britain took control of Canada, and it became part of the empire. And so I really love this game. When I first bought it, it was Rise of Prussia. There was no gold version, and then about 3 or 4 years after this was published, they decided to put out a gold version, which was an update of the game engine, an update of this game, added more scenarios, added a full campaign that was geared toward play by email. So there's a version of the full campaign that is called the 4 player campaign. So 4 players could play that campaign, or 2 players. And some of the scenarios that they added were pretty cool, in that I'm pretty sure they added the first Silesian War and the second Silesian War, because I don't remember them ever being with Rise of Prussia before I got the gold version. And something along those lines I just wanted to mention. When I first bought Rise of Prussia, I think it was $24.99 or something along those lines. And then when the gold update package came out, you could buy just the gold update package if you had Rise of Prussia, and it was just something like $7 for people who owned the previous game, the original game, so that it could be upgraded to the gold version. And then the gold version, I think, was sold at basically the same price as the original version was sold when it first came out. And I will say that if you plan on buying this game, they have sales pretty much several times a year. The biggest sale is from about the third week in November to January 7th or so, the first week of January. And you can get this game at half price, or even less. I think the The last time I saw it on sale, it was for like 9.99, or about $10, and so that's pretty cheap. But I know that Asia slash Slytherin slash Matrix Games has been criticized before in the past for not lowering the prices of some of their older games. But if you just plan out your purchases, you can get it at sale, and it's usually pretty deeply discounted. So that's what I'd do if I was interested in any of these games. I would wait for a sale and then go ahead and buy it. And if you're like me, you'll get hours and hours and hours of playtime out of these. I've probably played, the game I played the most is To End All Wars, which is about World War One, and I probably played it 200 to 300 hours. I played the grand campaign about 8 or 9 times. So you know, if you like these games, if you get into these games, these are not hex types games. These are games based on regions, drawn regions, and so it doesn't look like any hex board you'll ever see. It's almost like the actual states or regions that originally made up a country, and you'll see that when we get into it. So this, I want to play. I've played the grand campaign actually on a playthrough, and it was one of my first playthroughs, and I probably I wasn't very polished. I'm not very polished now, but I think I was even less polished than I am now. And I actually won the game, and I was playing on the part of Russia. I mean, not Russia, Prussia. I was playing. I played the grand campaign as Prussia because they're the underdog. And speaking of underdogs, let's go to options. Let's cancel out of that. Go to options. I have the music turned off. Sounds are on. Language is English. Regroup armies. I'm actually going to click that because I like that. Because when you don't have regroup armies on, they're spread all over a region. Sometimes if you're besieging a city, you can't see the siege icon to see what the status of the walls are, status of breaches. Pause after a battle. That's so you can take a look at the actual battle before the turn actually completes. Battle animation. Just you get an animation of the actual battle while it's going on. It's pretty cool. 3D models. I don't play with 3D models. The models I play on are kind of like, if you remember the old Stratego. It looks like a computer version of that. It's, you have these little cards or whatever you would call them of the units, and you can click on the card. If you have 3D models, it's like uh, a representation of a soldier that's like a little, um, almost like a little game piece. It's hard to explain, but it's like if you played a board game and it had actual pieces, it kind of looks like that. So anyway, save replay. I got that checked. No big deal. Two tip to uh, English fails me at times. Tooltip delay, and so that's when you put the cursor over something, the information pops up immediately. Focus on move. I have that as low. Actually, I might put that up a little turn. Turn compression. This is just for play by email. We've covered that before. Game, use Fog of War. Yes, because that's just, you wouldn't in real war see what the other guy's doing unless you're doing reconnaissance. So I don't understand. I always play with Fog of War on. Delayed commitment. This is just if two armies enter a region. Let's say both of them enter the region on day 2 of the turn. They might wait till day 5 of the turn before they actually battle, if they're going to battle. And it even says that a delay can occur ranging from 1 hour to several days, depending on the commander's strategic rating and depending on whether friendly units are already engaged in the battle, which does make a big deal. If you got a battle already going on, they usually immediately commit. Foreign entry, the foreign entry level is set to normal. I don't really know what foreign countries can enter this game, to be honest. Because if you're playing the main campaign, it starts as Prussia, and then you get troops from Great Britain. If you're playing as the coalition, it starts out as Austria, but France comes in and Russia comes in, and it always happens. I don't know of any other uh, countries or empires or whatever that could. Maybe Turkey could. Maybe Turkey uh, could intervene, but I can't think of any other countries that we would worry about entering. But anyway, I have it set to normal. Historical attrition. When I did one of my playthroughs, I talked about historical attrition, and I said I didn't like it because I thought that it too many people were lost to historical attrition. Too many units were depleted in when you have historical attrition on. And I think I'm completely wrong on that, to be honest. I really do believe I've just watching other people play the Asia games and just thinking about it, I think I'm wrong on it and they are right. But I will say that when you have historical attrition on, it it puts the underdog at a bigger disadvantage. I think when historical attrition is off, the underdog gets a slight evening of the playing field because I mean, take a look at American Civil War. You got the Union on one side and the Confederacy on the other. I think historical attrition favors the Union because they have so many more troops, even if it's a percentage. I still think, in a way, that kind of favors slightly the Union to have historical attrition on. So if you have it off, I think that helps even the playing field a little bit for the Confederacy to make it more of an even game. And so I think I'm going to always have this as not historical just for that reason. Activation rule. If selected, land forces have a large movement and combat penalty if the stat commander is not activated. We've talked about that before. A general can be active or inactive. Inactive, they can't put the stack on offensive posture. And it also has combat penalties if they're inactive. If they're active, you can put them on offensive posture and they'll fight at whatever the commander can put them at with his ratings, his combat ratings. Randomized generals, I've talked about that before. I don't like generals with randomized ratings. You wouldn't want General Grant to be a 1-1-1, or you wouldn't want Stonewall Jackson in American Civil War to be a 1-1-1. You wouldn't want Frederick the Great, who is considered a genius, at 1-1-1. So I don't do that. I don't like that. I've never liked that. I don't want some general I've never heard of be the best general in the game, in the playthrough. Naval boxes handling. I've got this on standard, which means that I should handle it all, but I think in this game, naval boxes don't really come into play that much. And extended pool, we've talked about that before. If you put this on anything more than historical, then either side could buy more units than they historically were able to buy and historically existed. And I just don't really like that. AI, obviously activate AI. AI ranking is Sergeant. On Sergeant, it can be challenging, although players with some experience of the game should be able to win over them without too much difficulty. We talked about this before. In smaller scenarios, you're not really considered or expected to beat the AI on the smaller scenarios. They're more for learning the game, even though I have beaten some of the smaller scenarios in other games like the Finnish Civil War. I won a total victory. In Bloody Shiloh, I think I lost, but I can't really remember. And then Wars of Succession, I won on points. And Bloody Shiloh, which was a civil war, I lost on points. So I think you can win the game, but it's on the smaller scenarios, but it's a lot tougher. On the longer scenarios, you got a lot more play time, a lot more, turns to make mistakes in, and can still win a total victory. Just depends on how everything falls out. Use all behaviors. If disabled, some AI behaviors will be disabled. Lower AI performance, but higher turn processing speed. I have a pretty good computer. I don't really worry about turn processing speed. If the turn is taking too long to process, it's more of the game engine than my computer. And it's probably something I need to take a look at if it's really taking a really long time for a turn to process, because the turns really don't take that long. I know that in some of the bigger games, the turns do take a little longer, especially like Pride of Nations. It's going through all the different AI behaviors when it's running a turn. And then, of course, in a game like To End All Wars, you've got so many units and so many generals and everything else that it's going through that it takes a little while for it to process. But in something like a small scenario, you don't really have to worry about it. So I'm not going to worry about it. Activation bonus +1 for the AI. Current difficulty level is normal. +1's pretty good. It's more than what you get. It's more than what the human player gets. AI detect bonus, they get a +1 or a low bonus. For the best game experience, it is recommended to play with a medium bonus for AI and give let's put it on medium then, and give the AI more time. Aggressiveness, you only want to have aggressiveness on normal. If you put it on high, you get some real weird behavior from the AI, so you don't ever want to do that. Error logging. If you click this on, and I've noticed this is going on in the history guy gaming, or he's doing American Civil War 2. He has it on, and it shows up as a little box up here that shows you where your cursor is on the map, and it shows like FPS and things like that, but it covers up some of the stuff, some of the information. I don't like that, so I always turn it off. And plus, you're sending an email to AJOB. Well, AJOB's not going to patch this game again, so there's really no sense in sending them information. I won't say they'll never patch it, but I don't think they'll ever patch it again. CPU sleep mode, I have it checked, but I'm not going to talk about that. Textures initialized, I have it checked, but I'm not really going to talk about that. No winter map. I like the winter map. Memory usage is all the way to 75% of physical memory to help it run turns. Max texture size, yes. Display borders, I'm actually going to click yes, because display borders will show the borders of the countries so that you can know what is Prussia, what is Austria, that type of thing. Anything else? Nope, it looks like that's all. There's no scripting. And then, so we can go ahead and start. I'm going to play the first Silesian War. It's a smaller scenario. It's smaller even than the second Silesian War. And I'm going to play Prussia. Prussia's alliance will win if it fulfills all requirements stated in the ledger without incurring excessive losses. Same with Austria. The Prussians invade Silesia. 1741, Maria Theresa at bay. Maria Theresa is the Empress of Austria, and she has been on the throne for 2 months. So on December 16th, 1740, the Prussian army enters Silesia to annex the whole or part of it. The Prussians had been mobilized and concentrated rapidly thanks to their permanent army and took Austria by surprise. Maria Theresa reacts after Charles VI's death on October 20th, 1740. His daughter saw her inheritance threatened despite promises made by treaties. As soon as the Prussian threat became a reality, with the moving troops in concentration, many Austrian regiments were dispersed in the empire but were rushed to Silesia. At the time of the invasion, the Austrian forces had grown from about 2,400 men to 8,000 men in Silesia, with many regiments still on the move that would take weeks and months to eventually reach Silesia. So Silesia is, and let's take a look at this. So these are our objectives: Glogau, Nice or Nice, Breslau, Glatz, Brieg, Ratibor, Gleiwitz, Troppau, Namslau, Konigratz, and Katowice. And then these are the strategic towns. Sudden death is off, so I can't win by national morale dropping below a certain point or going above a certain point. Victory points. So right now, is there? No. See, in later games, they have a better, I think, victory points and objective screen. This one just lists the city, just lists our morale. Doesn't say anything about how many troops have been lost. It tells you what the victory points are. Our points are 30 points. Their points are 275. Points accumulated each turn from cities: 4 for us, 26 for them, and they own all the cities here. And I'm sure that 26 is this added up. Then you have strategic towns over here. And that might also contribute to points. I'm not sure. But as you can tell, we own 3 cities that are controlled strategic towns, but they own all of the objectives. And that's because we invaded Silesia to take it over. And so the objectives are in Silesia or Austria. And I think that's going to be the end of this episode. This is more of the introductory episode. And I will see you next time. Thanks a lot for watching.